Hi everybody, and welcome back to Life According to Nikki. Today is kind of a copy paste of a bunch of different recordings that I've done over the past few months. I would do, like 11 minutes here and 17 minutes there, just in my spare time during the semester, and I have finally had time to edit, so this episode's going to be a little bit all over the place, but I have it structured the same as my normal episodes. But if the sound sounds slightly different, just my distance from the microphone or whatever, that's why. It's just a bunch of stuff that I recorded that I kind of pasted together. But I think it's going to be great. I'm happy to be back, and let's just get started. Are we kidding? Oh my gosh, I love that. Let's start off with my recent reads. I read the new Hunger Games prequel, Sunrise on the Reaping. Now, if you have not heard of this, I feel like they really did not do that good of publicity for this. Come on, PR people, where are you at? Susan Collins, you used to be the queen of PR back in the day. Everyone knew about the Hunger Games, so where are we at with the prequel? Now, brief history, if you're unfamiliar. You have the original Hunger Games trilogy, the ones that came out in, I believe it was like 2010. Am I going to look it up? No, I'm not. We're just going to guess and we're going to go with it. So, anyways, the original trilogy came out, and that is Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark's story. Fantastic. Chef's kiss. We know how much I love them. Then, about 5 years ago now, I believe, again, not going to fact check, the first prequel came out, which was called A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And this one is about Snow's story. It was like the 6th or 10th Hunger Games or something, so it wasn't the very first one, but it was still at the beginning of the Hunger Games, and you get to see Snow's rise to power, and also the very first winner from District 12, and how Snow had like a love affair with her. That one was beyond boring. Oh my gosh, I didn't even finish it, which was so sad and disappointing because I read the original trilogy 13 times. So the fact that this prequel came out and then I didn't even finish the prequel, it sucked so bad. 0 out of 10, do not read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, they did come out with a movie, which I did like. A lot of people didn't, but I enjoyed the movie. I thought it gave some redemption to the boring book. I loved the characters in it. The songs in it were bangers. I still listen to them to this day. Lucy Gray, that song, oh, I love that one. And the guy who plays Snow, what's his name? Hold on, this I am gonna look up. Tom Blythe. Oh my gosh, he's so attractive to me. Tom Blythe, him with that bleach blonde hair. I loved it with the curly hair. I loved it with the buzz cut. Oh, he was just, yes to that. And the fact that him and my favorite actress from My Lady Jane, that they are starring in People We Meet on Vacation, the Emily Henry book adaptation. Oh my gosh. I will be going to the midnight premiere of that. I know they don't do midnight premieres anymore, so I'll just go on the day that it's released. But if there was midnight premieres, I would be attending that one. Okay, that one would get me up. That one I'm excited for. When People We Meet on Vacation drops, it better do it justice, okay? That's all I'm saying. But you have 2 of the hottest actors in Hollywood right now that are playing the main characters in that movie, and I'm psyched about it. But going back to the Hunger Games. So you have the prequel book, subsequent movie, and honestly, both were pretty big flops, so we haven't really heard much. Then out of nowhere, Susan Collins decides to drop a second prequel, and this time it's Haymitch's story. Haymitch was the mentor in the original Hunger Games, the one that's drunk, and he's played by Woody Harrelson. So great, by the way. Oh my gosh, I'm just looking this up right now, and I'm seeing who's going to play the young Haymitch in the movie adaptation, and it's an Australian actor, Joseph Zeta. Okay, he's very attractive. Okay, this is so exciting. Oh my gosh. Yay. All right, he's from Sydney, Australia. Well, hey, how about that? Okay, but this story is about Haymitch's games. It's basically set up the exact same way as the first Hunger Games, where it starts off with a little bit of background. You get to be introduced to Haymitch, then you have his reaping, then you have his games, and then you have what happened after the games. And then you have a really great epilogue that brings back in the ending of the original trilogy. But holy crap, this book was so sad. It was deeply heart-wrenching. I don't know, the original trilogy, maybe it's because I was so young when I read it that, the whole archery thing, and you'd make jokes like, oh, I could win in the Hunger Games. It just made it feel more lighthearted. But this time around, reading Haymitch's story, it was not lighthearted. It was so sad. And some of those death scenes, oh my gosh, I know they were fictional, but they're gonna haunt me till the day that I die. If you've read the book, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The squirrels, you know what I'm talking about. Holy crap. But overall, fantastic. I do recommend. If you were a fan of the original Hunger Games, here's what I would do. I wish someone would have told me this, and I wish I could go back to a week ago and relive it and do it right. I would have read the second Hunger Games. I would have read Catching Fire first and then just immediately gone to Sunrise on the Reaping, because there's so many characters in Catching Fire that are also in that book, and it would have been cool to read it like that. Part of me thinks maybe I'll just read Catching Fire, but I think it would have been better if I would have read Catching Fire first. So if you haven't read it yet and you're planning on it, read Catching Fire first and then jump to Sunrise on the Reaping. That's what I wish I would have done. But my rating, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. I really liked it. I found it very enjoyable, very entertaining. And I do recommend to anybody out there. Just know it's very sad. There wasn't really a lot of lightheartedness. There wasn't really a lot of joy in that book, but it was very good. It brought some redemption back to the absolute snooze fest that was A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I am absolutely pumped for the movie to come out in, 2 years' time. Next up, I read the Abby Jimenez book, the new one, Say You'll Always Remember Me, and I loved it. But I really don't think that it's going to be everybody's favorite. So you know what? We're just going to read my Goodreads review of that one because I feel like it really explains my feelings on the entire story, okay? So here we go. My review of Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Girl, you don't even gotta ask. Yes, I read it in a day. Yes, I loved it. And yes, I will continue to read every book this woman writes until the end of time. But, with all of that said, I don't think this particular book will be everyone's cup of tea. But it must have been the chocolate milk tea from Coco, because it sure was mine. Let's start up at the top with all the reasons I loved it, and why I believe the girlies who love fantasy will hate it. No spoilers. Number 1, no small miscommunication tropes. Immediate 3 stars from me if you don't have some stupid conflict that could be resolved with literally one conversation. Nothing does it for me quite like honest and open communication with a man saying exactly what he wants and how he feels. Well, that and a color-coded Excel spreadsheet. Both are a guaranteed turn on to me. But if you live for the drama, then you'll be bored. Number 2, it felt so real and authentic. I was convinced I was reading about 2 real adults with financial issues and complex family dynamics. At its core, it's truly a story about 2 amazing people that love each other, but who have circumstances largely out of their control that make it difficult for them to realistically be together. And I can't emphasize enough how realistic the conflict feels, which once again is why I loved it and why I don't think everyone else will. Number 3, it's slow. Most of the plot focuses on the conflict of their personal lives, and I'm normally not into that, but I don't know, this book made me like it. There was still enough banter to keep it upbeat and fun, but compared to her other books, this one is by far the most tame and mellow. In conclusion, if you like the drama and steamy romance that Abby Jimenez usually provides, and you read books to completely escape the real world, then I don't think you'll love this. We'll end with another food analogy to help you really grasp whether this book is for you. In the book world, you have what I call hostess donut reads. Not a whole lot of substance, but so frickin' good and sweet that it really satisfies your cravings, and no one has to know that you ate the whole bag by yourself. You don't care if it low-key gave you a stomachache or cavities. It was exactly what you wanted. This book is more like Turkish Delight. Also covered in powdered sugar, also a dessert, and Edmund from Narnia will have you thinking it's literally the most delicious thing ever made. But if you've ever actually had Turkish Delight, you'd know that it's not super sweet. It's thicker, takes longer to chew and swallow, and can't be inhaled like those donuts. Again, not for everyone, but I love me some Turkish Delight, so I was vibing. Okay, that's it. That's my full review. I'm gonna go watch Narnia now and wish I wasn't in Australia so I could get my hands on some real Hostess donuts. Eat some for me, will you? That was my review. I think that says everything I need to say. It was a 4.25 stars for me, and I loved it. Yeah, go Abby Jimenez. Moving right along to movies, we're just gonna get this one out of the way first. I did, in fact, watch Baby Girl with Nicole Kidman, and oh my gosh, no. It was interesting. I genuinely wanted to watch it because I can't even tell you the number of books I have read now about paraphilias, which basically that's just another word for like kinks, okay? It's not to be confused with pedophilia. That is a type of philia. Philia is going to be anything that is outside the, quote, normal things to be aroused or turned on by. And pedophilia is going to be specifically with, children or minors, people who can't consent. That is a pedophilia, but there's different types of philias, and they all go under this umbrella term of kink. So I've read a lot of books, probably like upwards of 20 books on just the kink world and different philias that there are, because I find it just endlessly fascinating. And obviously, when you know my career, it makes that a lot less weird. But anyways, I wanted to watch this movie because the only movie that I truly know of that's mainstream is 50 Shades of Grey, which I actually have never seen because I'm not really interested in it. I don't know. But this one interested me because it's not so much the typical, like, being chained up and what people think of when they think of BDSM. Most people associate BDSM with 50 Shades of Grey. But just to break that down super quick, BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, sadomasochism, and masochism, also submission and dominance, the S and D part. Now, what does any of that mean? Let's start with bondage. Bondage is going to be anything from just simply having a restriction of your hands or your feet. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're being tied up. It just means that you have some sort of bondage in some way. And of course, there are extreme sides of being chained up to something, being completely restricted. There is a very big, wide scale to each of these categories, but typically when people hear about it, it's immediately on the extreme side and it's very violent, but it doesn't have to be. And in fact, a lot of people don't like that side of it. That's just the one that is shown very often in porn or in just more mainstream media. But just know, across the board, there is a very wide range. So you have bondage, then you have discipline. This is going to be a lot of power dynamics, where one person is in charge and the other person does what they're being told. The dominance and submission, that's going to be the D and S in the BDSM category, and that can be switched sometimes in some couples. It's always the same. There's always one person being told what to do. There's always one person telling the other person. So it just depends. And then you have sadomasochism, which that is receiving sexual pleasure from pain of some kind, and then a masochist or masochism, which is going to be receiving sexual pleasure from giving of pain. And pain could be anything from, you spank someone, a little love tap, and you get turned on by that, to electric play or knife play or something more dangerous, or something like shibari, which that is these intricate knots of rope, and you tie someone up, you completely bind them, so that would be a combination of bondage, but it can be very, very, very painful at first until their body kind of like gives out, and then they go into this euphoric state because their body is just kind of like overtaken by pain. Again, it's very fascinating to me to learn about these things. So there's huge scales, but BDSM, just know it's not just, whipping someone and tying them up and chaining them up, and it's not always like that. You can have elements of it, but this movie, Baby Girl, with Nicole Kidman, I was interested in it because it really played with the power dynamics of this dominance and submission. And according to the trailer, I was interested to see how they did it in more of a mainstream media type of way. So I watched it, and oh my gosh, I was so disappointed. It was just so boring to me. There was no real plot to the movie, and I know people are gonna be like, well, of course there wasn't a plot. Like, it was a hot movie meant to turn people on or whatever. It really did not do that for me personally, because I was watching it more as a film. This was not a movie, this was a film to me. I was going in with, a notepad, ready to see if this is something that I could suggest to my clients, which in some cases I actually do think it would be, but it just was so boring. I don't know. I don't really quite have the words. I wish I had more to say about it, but I was disappointed. I feel like the trailer made it seem like it was going to be this super hot, steamy movie, and maybe it was. Maybe I just have a very skewed view because of my career and because of what I learn about and see, and I'm very analytical thinking when it comes to sexuality. So maybe the movie was just spoiled on me because I was kind of going in watching it as a film, not a movie. I was like, okay, let me see how this shows these power dynamics, and I was kind of disappointed with how it did that. But yeah, honestly, if you're thinking it's gonna be this hot, steamy movie, I don't think it was. Could just be me, but I think that it wasn't that great. So overall, Baby Girl, it just was disappointing and kind of lame, and I gave it a very indifferent 5 out of 10. It wasn't as disappointing as Challengers was. When I watched Challengers, the PR for that one really had me thinking it was going to be something different. It was so freaking stupid. So it wasn't as disappointing as Challengers, but I didn't love Baby Girl. So I don't think I would recommend it. Unless you really want to have a conversation with your partner about power play, then I guess it could be helpful, but if you're going to have that conversation, I have way better books that I would recommend than this movie, okay? And if you want to know what those are, just DM me. All right, next up we have Rumor Has It. This is an old movie. This has Jennifer Aniston in it, Kevin Costner. It's got some big names, Mark Ruffalo, and it was one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. What was this plot? I was jaw on the floor, couldn't believe what I was seeing. Okay, here's the plot of this movie. I'm going to spoil the crap out of it because you should never watch this. It was so dumb. You have this rumor, because the movie's titled Rumor Has It. There's this rumor about this town where there was an older woman in her mid-40s that seduced a man in his 20s to sleep with her. Then that older woman's daughter slept with that man years later, the day before her wedding. Okay? But right after she's done sleeping with him, she then goes to her wedding the next day and all is hunky-dory. And 9 months later, she has a baby. And that is Jennifer Aniston's character. So this baby is now obviously a grown woman in her mid-30s, and she is dating Mark Ruffalo. Her mother is passed away, and I honestly don't even remember why she was going home. Oh, her sister was getting married. That's right. So she flies home with her boyfriend, Mark Ruffalo, to attend her sister's wedding. This secret of her mom running away the night before her wedding to sleep with some guy is revealed, and she finds out who it is. So she decides that she's going to go meet him because she is convinced that he is actually her father, because she doesn't get along with any of her family, like she's so different from them, so this guy must be her father. So she travels to go meet him, and this guy is played by Kevin Costner. She goes to meet Kevin Costner, and he reveals to her that he cannot possibly be her father because he is infertile. And then what happens? Yep, that's right, she sleeps with him. So if you're keeping up with the storyline, now Jennifer Aniston's grandmother, her mother, and now herself have slept with the same man. The same man. And this whole time, she is engaged to Mark Ruffalo, who has been nothing but perfect to her. The whole story is insane, but I think the most insane part was right after she sleeps with Kevin Costner, they go to this dinner party the next day. And at the dinner party, this rando guy comes over and he says, "Hey, I'm just looking for my dad. Have you seen him?" And she's like, "I don't know. Who's your dad?" And his dad was Kevin Costner. Which then all of a sudden the plot for a good 5 minutes was thinking that she slept with her own father. Incest. That was this plot. Incest. Who wrote this? Oh my gosh. Anyways, it was not incest. Thank goodness. But even the implication of it, even just, why would you put that in a movie? Why would you go there? That is the dumbest thing. You should not be using the possibility of incest as a plot twist ever. You want to know what 2 things you should never add to your movies? It's that. Okay, that's number 1. And number 2 is going to be any sort of real terrorist event as your plot twist. I'm looking at you, the movie Remember Me with Robert Pattinson. I'm looking straight at you. Mr. Twin Towers plot twist ending? Absolutely not. Jail time. Jail time for that. I believe that I've discussed this on a previous episode. If not, girl, we need to bring this to the table. You know what? Quick pause on this conversation really fast. Let me jump back, finish my original thought, and then we're going to go to Remember Me. Okay, so rumor has it, it turns out he is infertile, and him and his wife lied to their son that they ended up getting sperm from another person. It was so stupid. The whole movie was so dumb. Do not watch this. I beg of you. It's going to be, on my personal scale, a 2 out of 10. Rumor has it it's bad, and the rumors are true. Okay? Oh, The Public. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Oh my gosh. Guys, no. My friend Courtney, we watched it together, and she didn't mind the whole incest plot twist. She didn't mind a lot of the issues that I personally had, so she is the reason that I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, because that was her ranking. But no, guys, no. Okay, jumping back to Remember Me. This is a movie with Robert Pattinson and, oh gosh, what's her name? Lily James? You know, we're gonna look it up. I know I almost never look things up, but sometimes I need to know. IMDb, where are you at? IMDb is one of the most used apps on my phone, and if you don't know what that is, I don't know if we can be friends. It's the app that tells you who acted in everything and who directed it and what awards it won. It's a very important app in my life. Emily DeRaven. That is not the same as Lily James. Emily DeRaven. What is she in? Oh, you know what? She plays Belle in Once Upon a Time. Oh, Once Upon a Time. That was so good for a couple seasons. It really was. Okay, but Remember Me. We are all over the place. I swear I've talked about this on the pod, so I'm so sorry if this is a repeat. If it is, I'm going to do the rapid fire version. You have Robert Pattinson's character, and he's, a boy who has it all, rich daddy, has major daddy issues, obviously. Basically the world at his feet, but he doesn't take advantage of it, and instead he's just a bum on the street. Love that rhyme. And he meets this character, the Belle from Once Upon a Time. She, if I remember correctly, was also kind of in a rough, druggy position spot in life as well. I just remember their relationship was so toxic and bad. And then you have this really, really disconnected, weird side plot with Robert Pattinson's younger sister, who's getting severely bullied at school. The whole thing's disconnected. But in the end, there is some sort of reconciliation between Robert Pattinson and his dad, and his sister and him. He's able to, like, help her a little bit, I think. I feel like there was also kind of a sweet moment there, and then there was a reconciliation between him and his girl. So there was some hope to the end of this just trash garbage film. But the very, very, very last scene is Robert going to visit his dad and have a conversation with his dad at his dad's office. So he goes up and he's looking out at the city, and the cameras zoom out, and all of a sudden he's in this big, tall building, and you realize it's one of the Twin Towers. And then it cuts to his sister in a classroom with her teacher writing the date on the board, and it's 9/11. And that's how the movie ends. Is he died in the Twin Towers. Like, what? And it was way too soon when this occurred. This movie was filmed, I think, in 2010. I was correct. It was 2010. Okay? 9 years after this event, this movie came out. That is horrible. It will always be too soon, and we cannot be using that as a plot twist. No. Incest and the Twin Towers or any other real terrorist event is going to be off limits. Okay? There is ethical standards that we as citizens in society need to abide by. Oh my gosh. I hate that movie. That is a 0 out of 10. Do not ever watch that. And while we're talking about Robert Pattinson and crap movies that he's been in, Water for Elephants, garbage. That had Reese Witherspoon in it too. And that movie, that's on my list of worst movies I've ever seen. Which, should we just go over that list really fast? Should we? We'll do it really quick. I genuinely can't remember if I've already done this or not. There's part of me that thinks that I have. We'll just do it again. Just as a reminder, here are my least favorite movies on planet Earth. Number 1. Actually, these are not in any particular order, okay? But even if they were, this top one that I'm about to say, it would be in the top 3 if we were ordering them. Aquaman. Get out of here with that CGI, with those wigs, with freaking what's-her-face, Johnny Depp's ex, oh my gosh, Amber. That's Amber Heard. Oh, I loved watching that case on TV, though, when that whole lawsuit was going down. Yeah, I was invested in that, and I did watch the Netflix documentary about the whole thing again. It was great. Okay, Aquaman, Suicide Squad, Water for Elephants, Remember Me, Something Borrowed, After, Adrift, Sully, Practical Magic, The Guilty, It Had to Be You, The Hating Game, 500 Days of Summer, oh, I know that one's controversial, Float, and Love Actually are the worst movies I've ever seen. And it takes a lot to get on that list, because there's a lot of movies I don't like, but to be horrible enough to make that list, I gotta really hate ya. But you know what? I think this is good enough for the movie TV section. Let me just triple check. I have watched actually quite a bit more, but I feel like time-wise we're already ticking up there for this section and segment. I don't know, should this whole thing just be movies today? We'll save Moana 2, The Life List, My Fault London, and The Gorge for next week, okay? I'll save my reviews for those. Also, the new Emily Henry book, I did indeed finish that. I'll save all of those for next week, so things to look forward to. Let's jump now to my random thoughts. Starting off up at the top, I freaking love Anzac cookies. Guys, Anzac cookies, they are an Australian thing I have grown an affinity for. These feel like no-bake cookies in a way, but also a mix between a no-bake cookie and like an oatmeal cookie. I don't know, they're very few ingredients, but they're so chewy, and they've got the oats in them. Oh, I can down Anzac cookies. Give me a plate of Anzac cookies and it will be cleared. I have no self-control. I am really loving the Anzac cookie game. Also, Lamingtons, really up there on the things that I'm enjoying. For the most part, Australia food, not really doing it for me. But all of that does go to the side, and these are the exceptions when we are referring to Anzac cookies and Lamingtons specifically. I was having a conversation with a friend. His name is Kunal. Shout out to Kunal. He is from India. And we were talking at lunch about visas, okay, how difficult visas truly are to get, and that people just act so nonchalant about them. So we're discussing this, right? And then Kunal goes, when someone tells me where they went, I don't want to know where you went. I want to know how you went there. Like, how the F did you get a visa? Which is so true. Like, that is so true. How did you get a visa for that? Now, I am speaking from a position of immense privilege when it comes to the American passport and ease in which I have to get tourist visas, but just in general. But if we're talking permanent visas or student visas or anything like that, like, it is not easy to get visas, but I can't even imagine how much more difficult it would be if you're from a country where it is far more difficult to obtain a visa. For example, we're going on a trip to Bali next month. I have some friends coming to visit me. Shout out to Jatil and Mickey. They're coming all the way across the world to see your girl, because they real ones like that. And we're going to Bali, and we're going with a few friends that I've met here. And I was talking to my friend Ivana. She's from Zimbabwe, and she has to pay to get a visa to go to Bali, even for 3 days. I was like, wow, okay, that sucks. And just apply for it and everything. Whereas, luckily, the U.S. passport works where I just get a visa on arrival, and I can be there for, a tourist amount of time. So I am talking from a lot of privilege on that point, but it is far more difficult than people realize. If you are living in another country, like, the visa situation is no joke. Next on my list of random thoughts, I can't believe that we still don't know if the Loch Ness Monster is real or not. Like, how have we not had a light that can penetrate the ocean? I don't know how science works, obviously. That goes without saying. But how have we not figured this one out? Like, can't you get a team in there? Can't we get some divers? Can't you, even in the dark, feel around? I mean, considering how big we're saying it is, wouldn't you be able to feel it? Or are we afraid it's going to eat you? Like, I don't know. I feel like we should know by now if the Loch Ness Monster is real. I actually swam in Nessie's Lake, the river, whatever it is, in Scotland. Back when I was in Scotland. It was fantastic. I loved it. It was freezing cold, and it was very fun. And then we went directly from there to the airport. I changed my clothes in the most disgusting bathroom ever, and still had a little bit of a wet booty on my way to the airport. And it was fantastic. The trailer for the season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty just dropped, and I legitimately thought that I had missed a season because it has been so long. So the trailer dropped, and I was like, oh, perfect. I'm going to go back and watch the previous season that I must have missed because it's been so long since season 2 when I watched that, right? Like, I watched season 2 in Switzerland. It's been a minute since I lived in Switzerland. That was 2023. So obviously, 100%, this has to be season 4, and I just missed season 3. I go onto Amazon Prime, and lo and behold, nope, just season 1 and season 2. This is season 3. Why did it take 2 years? I mean, I get that Hollywood had the strike. I get it. But everyone else was back up and running. Why not you? Why? Why has it taken this long? But will I be watching it? Yes, I will. In the past 4 months, I've made friends with people that are far more intelligent than myself. A lot of PhD students, okay? I've learned about astrophysics, geology, evolution, the fourth dimension, aerodynamics, the works. I've been learning a lot. But I want all of you to know that even though I do feel significantly smarter right now, I don't think I'm going to retain any of it. Any of this knowledge, I'm going to remember that it was like a really intelligent conversation that we had, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to stick in my cute little brain. You know what I mean? It's full of other things, and I don't know if this is really going to make the cut. But it did remind me of a conversation that I had years ago, 2019. Okay, I'm in China. I'm living there, living my best life. And it was after church, all of us young single adults, there was about 25 of us, we had gone over to one of the members' houses. So they had a really nice, huge house because they worked for the embassy. So we're in their house, we're having dinner because they were hosting all of us young single adults. And I found myself in a conversation with two PhD graduates who were, like 30. And at the time, I was 20. So I'm there, and they're discussing artificial intelligence and saying how AI is 100% going to take over the world. Meaning, like, it is going to be implemented into everything, every facet of the world. And they were speaking with so much surety, and I really was not comprehending. I was like, what do you mean AI? Because I think AI, I think robots, right? And they were really nice in explaining things to me because I was asking some questions, and I was like, what do you mean, like robots? They were like, well, I mean, sure, that's one element of it, but they tried basically describing what is like ChatGPT and the AI that we have right now. And I'm telling you, I could not comprehend. I remembered sitting there being like, yeah, I'm way too stupid for this conversation. Like, I can't even conceptualize what you guys are talking about. I have no idea. And now that I use ChatGPT and all of these AI functions pretty much every day, I can't help but think of that conversation and how it was so over my head. And I was like, I don't know if they're like really talking about truth. Like, AI? Okay. And here we are, like 7 years later, and AI genuinely has begun to take over the world, and I believe it will continue to do so. So maybe years from now, 7 years from now, I'm going to think back to these conversations that I've been having about like aerodynamics in the fourth dimension, and things are going to start being clearer to me. So I'm hoping that, we're just planting the seeds of clarity that will grow into a fully developed concept 7 or 8 years from now. That's what's happening over here in my brain. To end today's episode, I am going to put in a section where I talked about my classes, because I do get a lot of questions about grad school. I'm a master's of sexology student, so it causes a little bit of curiosity, which I love because I love talking about my degree. So this next section and the last one of today's episode is going to be something I recorded a few weeks back about my classes and just my academic journey as of late. So please enjoy. Grad school is no frickin' joke, all right? Or at least not down under. Maybe it is in America. I don't know. I've never done grad school in America. But I'm telling you right now, it is so time consuming, and these professors, they are ruthless. Now, I am loving my classes. Actually, I don't think I've ever loved classes more in my life than the classes that I'm taking here. Let's just do a quick overview of the classes that I'm in and like what I'm learning, because it is so freaking exciting and I'm obsessed, and you all should know what I'm doing. First, we have sexology, attitudes, and values. This one is what's called a block class. So basically, what happened was I had like 2 lectures that I had to watch online that were an hour each, and then I waited a few weeks, and then I had 8 hours of classes a day for 1 week. And quick moment to reminisce on the fact that I used to be going to 8 hours of school in, high school. How was I doing that? How are we all doing that? That's insane. Okay, I go to like 1.5, 2 hours of class now. I'm pooped. I need a nap. I'm exhausted. It takes all my energy just to get there. Like, what do you mean I was going to 8 hours a day plus after school stuff and then I had a job? Like, what? As a 16-year-old, we were doing that? No wonder teens hate us. Okay? That's crazy. Anyways, I did do 8 hours a day of learning, and it was a lot of information. It was really great, but holy crap, at the end of each day, I just wanted to come home at 5 p.m. and pass out. I was so tired. So I did this, and the entire course was assessing your own attitudes and values as a sexologist towards different aspects in sexuality and the field of sexology. So, what does that mean? There was a variety of units, so we started off watching an hour and a half of explicit material. And by explicit material, yes, it was porn. But it's not like we went on like Pornhub. It was like academic, but it was porn. I don't know quite how to explain it, but I genuinely was so nervous because, news alert, this was my very first time watching porn, okay? And I don't know why that shocks people so much. Turns out it's pretty easy to avoid, actually. I mean, I know that it's everywhere, but if you want to avoid it, like, you can. And especially in a religious community, it's easier than most, okay? I didn't have internet on my phone until I was 18 years old. So, yeah, no, never seen it before. Obviously, I have seen very explicit things throughout my career now and throughout my undergrad. I mean, hello. But this was like video material, which I had never seen before. And it wasn't just, discussing like STIs or anatomy or something like that. Like, this was more on the side of just exploring all facets of sexuality. So, anyways, I was really, really nervous, and I even talked to my bishop about it, and I got a blessing from him beforehand, which to some people may sound stupid, but like I genuinely needed it. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be religious and then like also go in knowing I'm gonna watch porn with a classroom full of 30 people. That sounds so uncomfortable. And this is like my first time being exposed to this type of video. I was like, anyways, it turned out it was great. Like, it was completely fine. And I feel like I did gain a lot from the experience, so that was good. No, I was not aroused. Okay, before any of you ask or wonder, no, I was not aroused. I'm sure some people were. I mean, I don't know. Because the lights were off and we were all kind of like spread out amongst the classroom. And obviously, this is a professional setting. Like, we were all there to learn, and so it wasn't as weird as I know it probably sounds. But nonetheless, that was how it started out. Then, once that video is done, then we got in our small groups and you discuss the material. So, this one was interesting because what they did is they would split the screen, and it would be, say like a heterosexual couple having sex on one half of the screen, and then on the other half, it was like two men or two women or a group of people, and then they would like switch it up. And it was all just to kind of assess, again, your own attitudes and values towards the material. Like, what were you drawn towards to look at more than something else, or did anything make you uncomfortable, or if it did, why did it? And just, there was a lot of material that was shown in a 90-minute period, let me tell ya. But it was interesting. There was all different types of body types and ages and just all sorts of stuff. So that was kind of how it started out. And then we would look at explicit pictures and have to describe them to another person. So one person was looking away from the screen, one person was looking at it, and you would have to describe what you were seeing. That was to help us get over any sort of nervousness that you might feel in talking about bodies and anatomy and just explicit pictures in general. Like, you need to be able to describe something to someone else without having a reaction yourself. So the whole point of this block week was to basically do exposure therapy, is kind of the premise, and then discuss how you feel about it so that you can have whatever authentic reaction you want to have in a non-clinical setting, so that the hope is, in a professional setting, it won't shock you when someone says something. You're not going to have a reaction of like how you personally feel about what they're saying. Instead, you will have been previously exposed to it. So when someone's telling you something that's like directly against your own personal values, you won't let that get in the way of telling them in a professional way, and what they should do or how you can help them or whatever it may be. So because of that, we were exposed to some very explicit things, kind of the extreme sides of a lot of the field of sexuality, a lot of which I don't necessarily work with my religious people, but, it was good to have that experience. I can see why they do this course, why it's a requirement in order to get your certification. And I mean, it's not like you're just watching this and then going home. Like, you watch stuff and then you discuss in your groups, and you discuss how did you feel about that, and why do you think you felt that way about it, and then we do another exposure, and then you discuss in your groups, and then we bring it to everybody and we discuss as a large group. So it was very structured, and it was honestly really great to get everyone's insights. In the classroom, there was 20 of us in the room and then 20 online, and I have never in my life experienced such a great online in-person hybrid experience. The professor that I had was so incredible in involving the people online as well as in the classroom. It was so well facilitated that I was like taking notes. It was amazing. And it was really cool to just have so many different people from tons of different backgrounds in this class. I was one of the youngest people in this class. Just for perspective, if you don't know, I'm 27, I'll be 28 this year, but the majority of people in my cohort and in these classes that I'm in, they tend to be mid-30s to mid-40s, sometimes early 50s. That's the age range, so I'm definitely on the young end of this master's and even just the certification for sexology. It tends to be people who are far into their professional field and they've decided that they need to specialize a little bit more in sexuality, or they want more certification because there's been issues that have been brought up in their practice or in their field that they're not equipped to handle, and they see that as an issue, which it is. And I'm so glad that there are people that are like, hey, the people in my field deserve the best type of care, and I want to be able to provide that for them. So a perfect example is there was a woman in my classes, she's probably like early 50s, and she works with spinal cord injury patients. She's been a nurse for just, decades, and she's seen a really big problem in these patients that she has that have spinal cord injuries in their sexual functioning, and how that really affects their quality of life because they no longer have sensation, or they have a lot of self-esteem issues, especially men, she was saying, after they have a spinal cord injury, they may have disruptions with erections or different problems. If you have incontinence, that's going to really affect someone's self-esteem, how they view themselves, especially as a sexual person, and it's definitely going to affect your sexual relationship with a partner, and that can be really traumatizing, it can be really difficult, and it's not really spoken about. They'll go to rehab and therapy for their muscles and for their legs and for their hands and all of these other things, but their sexuality and sexual functioning is not as well spoken about, and a lot of patients don't know how to bring that up if the nurse or practitioner is not bringing it up. But then a lot of times the nurses and practitioners don't want to bring it up because they either feel embarrassed or awkward about it themselves, or they don't want to offend the patient. There's just a lot of different things. So this particular classmate that I had, she decided to get her certification in sexology so that she can be the one that goes in and is like, hey, I'm here to talk to you about your sexual functioning and how your injury has been affected in this field. And we can talk about solutions and different occupational therapies and different tools that you can use and how we can help you to make sure that you have a good quality of life, not just in other areas, getting back to work and different stuff, but also your sexual health is equally important. So things like that. There was some educators, there were urologists. I think I wrote down actually some different careers that I found interesting. So hold on. Let me find that list. So there was a few people in end of life care, so like palliative care, people who are about to die, which again, you don't necessarily think about someone who's on death's bed and whether or not they want to have sex. Like, that's not normally something that people think about because they would just assume, well, you're about to die. But if you really think about it, someone who is about to pass away, they may still want intimate connection with their partner, and that may contribute to a better quality of life and a better death, which is the whole point of palliative care, right? Is to help people have a good death. And sometimes you have patients that are dying for months and they don't have any sort of physical connection with their partner. That can be very sad and very heart-wrenching for them and can really affect them. So having someone, a nurse that has this certification and that can at least have the conversation with them, is that something that you want in your end-of-life care plan? Do you want to be intimate or just have some sort of, that doesn't necessarily need to mean sex, okay? Sexuality doesn't automatically equal sex, okay? Let's get that clear. But is your sexual functioning something that should be prioritized in your final days? Is really the question that should be brought up, and someone should be comfortable enough to bring that up with patients. So that was, one of the careers. Spinal cord injury nurses. There was actually quite a few people that worked in the domestic violence space, whether it was with victims and victim advocacy and families, women's care, all of that. But then there were a couple that also worked with perpetrators. So they worked with criminals and with, the people who did the abusing, talking to them about their trauma and, behaviors and different things. So that was very fascinating. Because really, when you look at it, there are two different sides. You have the victim side and you also have the perpetrator. When it comes to sexual violence, not a lot of people want to talk to and try and understand the perpetrator side for obvious reasons, but there are people in that career, and it is important that they have sexuality training in order to go into those conversations. So there was a few of those. Public health, pharmacists, pelvic floor therapists. The unsung heroes of the sexuality world, in my opinion, are pelvic floor therapists. They're the unsung heroes in physical therapy, in just sexology in general. Y'all need to know about pelvic floor therapists and the work that they do, because they're literally saving lives and they are curing pain. And yeah, pelvic floor therapy, 10 out of 10. I can't tell you how many of my clients I have referred to a pelvic floor therapist. Urologists and, did I already say pharmacists? I think I did. And then you have people like me who, I work with religious people, and that was also unique. But yeah, it was really cool to be in this classroom with so many people from different fields and collaborate together, discuss our feelings towards the material. So that first day we had the big exposures, and then our different units, we had one on disabilities, transgender, homosexuals. Oh geez, what other ones did we have? Ooh, celibacy. That one was interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, you know what? We're going to spend a second on this. We had to discuss what our feelings and attitudes and values towards that were, right? So I'm sitting there as a celibate person. I know for a fact I'm the only celibate person in that room, okay? And I knew people, I'm sure, suspected, because I said I'm from Utah. I said all these things. I had a couple conversations throughout the couple days with people that were curious. You know, you don't often meet someone from Utah in a sexuality course, let alone in Australia. Okay, I get that that's unique, but even just in general, when I say that I'm a sex educator in Utah, that perks people up and they're like, oh, really? Well, anyways, it comes time to share about our feelings on celibacy, and I, honest to goodness, was gonna keep my mouth shut. I wasn't gonna say anything because I was like, ugh, I don't know if I should really voice something here. I'm not quite sure. Well, the professor is doing his last round of like, does anybody else have thoughts on this? And he looks straight at me, and I knew he wanted me to speak. But obviously, he wasn't going to push me. And I decided, you know what? Okay, I think that my opinion here could be valuable. So I raise my hand. He comes over with the mic. And the reason I didn't really want to speak is because it's not because I'm embarrassed or anything, but in these spaces where I'm with a bunch of people I don't know, in a culture I don't really know, and all of the answers that everyone had just said was basically all about how celibacy is rooted in control and the, just the very opposite feelings to what I believe and what I live. So, anyways, I get handed the mic. And I was like, well, I mean, I can speak on celibacy because I am celibate. And everyone in the room was like on the edge of their freaking seat. Like, everyone leaned in. They were like, oh my gosh. Like, obviously people suspected it, but to have me say it, I think was a whole different thing. I just basically, I said what I have previously stated in my sex and sexuality episode that was a couple episodes back, that I want my emotional intimacy to match my physical intimacy. And to me, choosing to be celibate does not come from this place of like, oh, I fear God and sinning and it would be this terrible thing if I went and had sex. That is just genuinely not how I view it at all. Instead, it's this decision that I've made because I want a certain type of relationship. That doesn't necessarily mean that the partner that I end up with will have also had to have been celibate. That's not a criteria for me. But for me, I want someone to commit to me before we enter into a sexual part of our intimacy. I want to know that you're serious. I want to know that you value me as a person and not just my sexuality, that you want me, all of me, and also my sexuality is mine alone. It is not just something that I'm waiting to give to somebody else. Like, that mentality does not sit well with me. I own my sexuality, and someone else should own theirs, and therefore I get to choose in which ways I'm going to interact and to use my sexuality. I'm not giving it to someone, I'm using it with someone. So, anyways, it was, I think, a good experience, and I had quite a few classmates after that day was done come up to me and even the next day and tell me how much it meant to hear my perspective, that they had never thought of celibacy in the way that I explained it, and they really thought it was quite beautiful how I choose to live my life. And anyways, it was great. Very, very positive experience. So I was quite happy with it. What else? We had a unit on HIV and HSV. HSV is going to be herpes, specifically genital herpes. So we had a guest speaker come that has HSV. We had someone come speak to us that had HIV. It was fantastic. I learned so much from them, and I feel like it was so valuable to have them there. We, of course, did a unit on STIs and sexual functioning, sexual dysfunction. It was just overall a fantastic week. Tons of material was covered, and I was able to kind of have my authentic reaction. My favorite unit by far was the last day. We had a guest professor come who he's currently writing papers. He's a PhD, blah, 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 and his field is kink. So anything in the kink world. So we had an entire unit on paraphilias. There are a lot of different types, okay? I'm sure, heard of feet fetishes and a bunch of other things. Well, we talked about tons of them, and we watched a 20-minute video about human pup play, PUP, pup play. I genuinely am so glad that this was an exposure so I could have my honest reaction, because that was crazy. That was a crazy video to me. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I had heard of like pet play, but this one it was quite extreme because, again, we were being exposed to the extreme sides of a lot of different areas for this exposure therapy. And I don't know, if you were to ask me what was the craziest thing you learned, it's honestly pup play. Pup play, if I'm being mild, all right? Yes, there was actually a lot more that I learned that that would definitely make your eyes go wide, but you know what? We're not going to talk about that because that's not what this pod's about. But the one that I remember the most and that I have thought about for the weeks since I've been in that class, it was that pup play video. That was so unexpected. I didn't know that people. I don't even know what to say about it, honestly. I mean, if you're into that, you're into that. But not something I think I would ever in a million years venture into. I'm going to tell you that right now. But hey, power to you if that's what you like. But yeah, that was my attitudes and values class. And then now I've had to write 2 papers regarding at least 2 of the units that we went over, and they have to be academic and blah, 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 blah. So that's where it gets into the boring part where I have to read a ton of peer-reviewed studies and write academic papers. But the learning part itself was very fun, very exciting. My other classes don't take nearly as long to explain. I have sexual and reproductive health in sexology class. That is my favorite class by far. I am obsessed with this class. It is 2.5 hours a week. It's from 6 to 8:30 every Thursday night, and we've had guest speakers come. We had an entire unit, 2 different class periods on prostate cancer and about men's sexual functioning. You guys, this blew my mind. This absolutely blew my mind. The things that we were learning in this class was insane. Now, there are 5 of us in this class, including myself, and only one of them is a guy. The rest were all women. We were raising our hands like every 5 seconds, I swear, asking questions. It's just stuff that you've never heard of. It's things that you never knew. Like, for example, did you know that the chances of getting prostate cancer are so high? 1 in 6. 1 in 6. And if you have a relative, say like your father had prostate cancer, then you have a 1 in 2 chance of getting prostate cancer yourself as a male. A 50% chance. That is so high. Now, a lot of times men don't go to the doctor when it's a problem dealing with their sexual health because there's a lot of shame and, just the toxic masculinity that's taught in the world. And so by the time that there is a serious problem and they're finally going to see someone about it because they've been bleeding for literal months, in some cases years, they've been bleeding out of their rectum or, their penis or something like that, and then they finally go in, like, we're way past the point of being able to help you. Now, there's no prevention, like, there's no steps that can be taken except for, like, radical steps, like, you're gonna die type of scenarios. And it's really sad how common that is. Because, again, men, they won't go in to see their GPs or to see a urologist or anything like that. So we discussed that and the reasons behind it, and all the statistics were insane. And the person that was teaching us, she is the lead researcher, get this, in the world for prostate cancer rehab. It was so crazy that we had someone so important that has written papers and procedures that are used around the world, and she was just there in a classroom of 5 people teaching us. She had slides of 157 PowerPoint slides and just answered all of our questions. She was amazing. Well, anyways, turns out when you have prostate cancer, if you need your prostate removed, you immediately become incontinent, meaning you have no control over your bowels. Did you know this? I did not know this. I feel like this is not talked about, especially with how prevalent prostate cancer is and how often this surgery is being performed. Like, those men have to wear diapers now for the foreseeable future, and it really affects their sexual functioning. Also, men have an erection in their sleep. It's called a nocturnal erection every 90 minutes during REM sleep, and that helps keep their cells alive and working well. But if you have your prostate removed, then it affects your ability to get an erection, and you typically stop having nocturnal erections. And because you're not having them every 90 minutes in your sleep, then it can give you what's called Peyronie's disease, which 1 in 10 men get. That is such high statistics, where it's the curvature of the penis, and it's extremely painful. And again, it's not talked about. Like, so many men have this, but they won't go see their doctor, or they won't tell anybody. Nothing. Like, they're just out here suffering, and it was just endlessly fascinating to learn all about male reproductive health. Oh, another thing that we learned that was just blew my mind was when men go up to a higher elevation, so if they're hiking to, Mount Everest or something like that, like these big extreme hikes, then it can completely affect their sexual functioning. So they can get like far more erections, they can accidentally ejaculate, they will have like really crazy wet dreams. It can have these very serious effects on their sexual functioning if you're hiking at a higher elevation. Isn't that so fascinating? Never heard of this in my life. I love that class. I absolutely love that class. We had another guest speaker come that broke down the exact science behind HIV and how it works, all of the preventions, what PrEP is, just down to like the cellular biology of what's going on and transcription in the cells and how it's made and what it does, and it was great. I live for that class. I really, really do. I also have a class called Foundations of Sexology, and that one, it's going over the history of research in this field, which has actually been going on for a very long time. You probably didn't know, but yeah, no, it's been occurring forever. And there's lots of different studies and researchers, so it's just kind of going over what the field of sexology is, how it began, how it got to where it is today. So that one's very fascinating as well. And then my last class I have is a public health class. I hate that class. That is my least favorite one. It is my only non-sexology class, and I'm forced to take it for my master's because my master's is under the umbrella of public health. Oh, I hate that class. It's just with a bunch of dietetic students, and it's just me and one other girl that's in sexology, and then it's like 30 dietitian students, but they call it dietetics here. Ugh, I hate that class. It's such a waste of my time, but whatever, it's fine. Yeah, that is what my classes are. A little bit of what I'm learning. I'm loving it. It's great. And I never doubted that sexology was the field for me. Obviously, I've been obsessed with it for a while now, but I can't tell you how much I love learning in these classes about the history, about how the body functions. There is just so much to sexuality that you have no idea, and I love learning about it. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please, before you go, rate and review. Please, if you listen to this on Spotify and you also happen to have Apple Podcasts on your phone, just hop on the second app and write me a little review, because you can't write a review on Spotify, but you can rate on here. So, give me some stars if you haven't already, and if you have both platforms, please do it on both, because my reviews for each platform do not blend together. I have to get them separate. It's very dumb. I hate it. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, please, I beg of you, if you have listened to this entire episode, over an hour of me talking, come on, just go on and rate me, please. I need the numbers, girl. I need them. Okay, that's all I have. You guys, you're the best. Thanks for listening to my thoughts on life, because this has been Life According to Nikki. Love ya. Talk to you next week.